for years and working with the technologies we've been given, but we're going to be the ones to transmit the wave out to give the wake-up call, because we are in the process of something called the externalization of the Kryst, because the fallen ones have begun the externalization of their anti-Krystic hierarchy with what is called the dark flower awakening. And it was interesting, in India we did see a bit of that happen, where just certain people, and not all the time either, it'd just be like at certain moments, and they just seriously weren't themselves. I don't think a lot of them remembered even, if they would just shift, and you just knew that was not the person who was usually there. And you could feel the really nasty frequency sometimes that was running. And it wasn't that people were trying to be mean or bad or anything. It was that they had trackers, and the trackers, called the PHIM, they track you through numbers of lifetimes. They target Krystics, especially PHIMs actually, because PHIMs are the ones that carry the plasma abilities, and if it turns on, they can protect not only themselves, but a lot of other life forms too. So what the PHIM like to do is track PHIMs and intercept them and their activation of their lotus system, their internal biology, before it activates to the plasma stage, when it's just starting to activate on the light body stage, and before the plasma kicks in. So they go in and they literally use frequency to reverse the light body structures, which will reverse the flowering structures that would normally be our living lotus generators inside of ourselves. And that has begun, they have begun the waves of activating their PHIM. And the they is, they're actually what people call demons. They're not just FAs. There's FAs and there's FAs and there's FAs, and then there's demon folk, right? They're a whole different category of FA. They're ones who chose to do that. They chose to, the path that they're on. They enjoy the path that they're on. They have no interest whatsoever in changing that path. And they're pretty much more scheming and more intelligent than most FAs that you'll find. They have more resources available, and a lot of them had once upon a time been PHIMs that came out and got entangled in the dramas and the outer matrices, and they had the abilities of plasma body at the time, and they lost the abilities to run core plasmas when they went into fall and their codes reversed, but they still have the ability to do some of the things with the lotus systems that became other types of flowers, the dark flowers. That don't look like lotuses. They do other things, and they suck energy off life forms and that kind of thing. So there's a wave of activation of those troops on the ground, and that's why the beloveds have begun the full wake-up call for the Krystic shield to let us know. I mean, it's really funny, even when you listen to like people that go to church and those kind of things, they've been talking about it for ages. The forces of dark and light rise up, and they're going to have a fight. Yeah, well, kinda, yeah. It's happening. It's been happening, but it's going to be happening more so. And they want us to be prepared. One of the things to be prepared is be able to, first of all, protect your own self. And we're going through natural activations. We're hitting a level where we would naturally start kicking in with the light body level of our lotus is activating, because we're running enough frequency to do that. Usually you have to get to a point where you've integrated most of your density 4 avatar level of frequency, and that's when it will start the sprouting process of the seeds of your lotus system that live in the chakra seals. And normally the light body structures would come out first, and then as they progressed and accreted frequency, they would start pulling in the core plasmas, which would create the seal around them so they couldn't be harmed. But as we're moving, the Krystics are moving into their organic light body lotus level activation. They've put the trackers on us, and they're going to try to take over the light body lotus system before we can activate the plasma lotuses. So it was really important that somebody on the planet, and it has to start with a tantric twin couple, just because of the coding that they share, to be able to run enough frequency to actually be able to transmit a wave that could actually spread through the whole shield. But you can't transmit something that you don't have activated in yourself. So the process that we went through had to do with getting our own systems activated on the plasma body level, so that we would be able to transmit to you on behalf of the beloveds. So you can get the frequencies that will begin the process. It's almost like, I remember getting a visual on it where you could see the little seed crystal seals that hold the vortices of your chakras together in your central vertical column. There's an encryption in there that has to do, it is literally a lotus seed. And when certain frequencies vibrate that seed, it sprouts. And his little thing comes up first, and you can actually see it. And at a certain point, there will be little buds that come out, and they look like baby chakras. I don't know if some people have seen what baby chakras look like, where they look like little buds that are closed at first, and then they slowly open their little vortices. But you have your vortices already open, but there'll be this like little bud that happens. I remember seeing it, actually, and I didn't know what I was seeing because they hadn't taught us any of this information yet about the lotuses or any of that. But I remember seeing it in my tantric twin, and I'm going, neat, what is that? That usually happens, that's usually like babies do that, like baby chakras do that. So it was like, that was in India, and when we got back from India, they taught me the things that I will be teaching you about the lotus structures. It was one of the most exciting parts of what I've learned. The training part was kind of wacky because it was like, go through this first and then we'll let you know what it was about. So I would have preferred to read the book and be prepared, but then at least you'll have that advantage. You get to see some of the things and like, oh, this is going to go this way and that's going to go that way. So if I see this happening in my, especially when I'm doing my journeys and stuff, I don't have to be paranoid and afraid because there's strange things happening up in temple, that kind of thing. So you're forewarned. Now this I just put up here, not really to talk about much, just as a starting point, where we talked about the path of the Majita, the Adashyada benders. And benders and menders and blenders, and the Tantriasia are the blenders. They're the ones that carry, and it depends on which level of shield you're in, whether you're of the violet suns, the green suns, or the white-blue suns, which are the aquiline suns. Which level of coding you carry will determine how deeply a blend you could have. The highest level of blend has to do with a group called the Reyes, and they're able to actually go into shape-shifting transfiguration when they're fully activated, where they can literally blend and become one identity. They started as one identity, so they can blend back into being one. So there are different levels of blend. There's like melt first, and then it starts going into blend. This has to do with not just having some really cool experiences, like with your personal life, but it has to do with, there's a little saying, they say, two become three become one, where there's a certain level of frequencies that, because of the codes, the blender codes, that you can blend your fields to a degree, even if it's not a full blender set, that will allow more frequency from your own selves to come through. Now, if you're a tantric set, it does mean you were the same identity that chose to come in a tantric configuration, which means you broke yourself into two, and literally, decided to come back together on the ground in that way, so you could run frequency in that way. Because the quantum amplification that can occur in the configuration of a tantric set, and also fontic sets, they have they didn't explain what the third element in between is, but they're like, next time around they will be able to be tantrics, but it's like a stage you go through. So I must have been fontic somewhere too, I just don't remember that either. But this all has to do with coming in with massive grid commissions that have to do with shields that save billions of life forms, not just on this planet, but across numerous different galaxies, where we have the ability, because of those blend codes, we have the ability to bring more of our Kryst in. Now, if we had been a being who went through the whole Adashi process of ascension to the point where we became Kryst stars, we have a huge amount of energy, a huge quantum of consciousness. We would be able to break that down again and bring it in, and the most powerful way to do that is in the tantric set, actually, where you can anchor first. You've got two parts of yourself there. Then you open the currents through them, and if you're coded all the way up to, like, let's say the highest coding of the highest sun, just let's use that for an example right now, you would be able to bring in massive amounts of core plasma frequencies. The core plasma frequencies from the internal reality are the strongest force in the cosmos. They're stronger than any of the external frequencies that run. So you would have amazing ability to bring power into wherever you were coming in order to serve the mission that you came for. And that's why we were really allowed, actually, to carry that kind of privilege, because it is a privilege to be able to carry that kind of power in manifest systems down here. It's a privilege and an honor, but it's one that was earned. If we hadn't earned it in whatever it was that we got to the point where we could do that, we wouldn't be able to do it. So it's a privilege, but also an earned privilege, but it's a responsibility. It's a beautiful experience, and most of what I'm speaking from has just been vertical. We're on the horizontal, my tantric and I are just getting to know each other, and it's really sweet and nice and stuff, and but vertically, it's he woke me up there, and it's an amazing experience when you start to do an actual blend, when you actually feel your own body shape-shifting into, and another person like shape-shifting into with you, and you both turn into a form that's different than both of you. Like, we've had the experience of, and I don't know if he remembers, I say on the ground here, on the ground and in the air, for the horizontal and the vertical aspects of both of us, but because we have to do with one of the groups called the EFF-I'm, when we do full blend, we go through a phase where we look like hominids with wings, and then that blends further, and it goes into a stingray form. So we're like manta rays when we do full blend, like the ray ships that would have come in before, like over Siesta Key and some of the things where we were raising the ray ships and things. Now I'm starting to understand who and what they are. They have to do with all of this. So it's an amazing feeling to be fully present in your body, in your form, and experience that form shifting into another form without you losing any sense of your own identity or feeling any fear or whatever. You're still you, you're still intact. But there's a fluidity and a freedom of form that comes with it. So there are joys that we can experience with these type of coding, but there's also amazing things we can accomplish with it. The Beloveds had given me a little bit of information about some of the things that, while I was going through with my relationship with my tantric, the vertical part especially, while I was going through that, the things that we were going through were actually because they were bringing in the core plasmas into a body vessel that lives on the planet. They were anchoring them through us here. So those frequencies actually became available here because they've been shut off here for a very long time. So each one of us that is connected to PHIM gates, that is an incarnation of a PHIM, and even if you're not, you can be part PHIM too. There are some people that are like, part like angelic human and part PHIM and that kind of stuff, but you'd still have the PHIM codes. The PHIM codes just give you this amazing ability to really affect the outcome of the evolution of planets and star systems, because you are a living unit of frequency, not just little frequency, but huge frequency, that you can run amazing plasma pillars that can power gates that billions of people and beings can get through to evac out of a system. So it's kind of mind-boggling. I find it that way anyway. I'm still kind of wrapping my brain around it, like, oh boy, wow, we do have big commissions in this shield, don't we? I had no idea. So I'd like to show you as we move along. I don't think Asan's back with the other ones. We can go through these really quick. This didn't come out